Becoming the person you were born to be is easier said than done. Hey ladies and gentlemen, today I'm excited to share with you a very special interview. And I want to give you a little background information. I wrote a post probably a few months ago about diversity. And what I meant by diversity was I said I want to have more diverse conversations on this podcast. And I wanted to have conversations with women and men about motherhood, fatherhood, humanhood, race, gender, sexuality, inclusion. And I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about privilege. I'm learning a lot about diversity. But at the core of all of this is not about, because diving into this world, for me personally, it's not about political correctness. I've been really uncomfortable reaching out to these people and having these conversations because I'm afraid that I'm saying the wrong thing or that I am being ignorant, like unconsciously or subconsciously ignorant, because we don't know what we don't know. So this is about education. This is about vulnerable conversations. And to kick it off, I wanted to share with you today Gio's interview. So Gio Petrucci, I'm probably saying his last name wrong. So we're going to call him GIOGRAFIK because that's what he goes by. So Gio is the human behind GIOGRAFIK, which is a one-person creative operation that he brought to life in 2017. To his hard work, persistence, and luck, his artistic career path has brought him together to create amazing designs for the fashion industry, the fitness industry, and politics. His work is instantly recognizable by his empathetic approach to creativity, as well as his desire to tell his clients' stories with compelling branding and design. So Gio and I actually worked on the Take a Stand t-shirt campaign. And this was a t-shirt campaign that went live last year, I believe. And it was to raise awareness and money for mental health. So I'm sure we're going to relaunch the campaign. It was a great first run. Amazing designs. It was called Take a Stand. And it was really just about taking a stand for how you want to feel and how you want to show up in your life. And so Gio was the designer behind that. And when I met Gio, somebody just actually connected us on Instagram. It was like, hey, I'm looking for a designer who I can just, state my idea to, and they can kind of, bring my feeling to life, my message to life. And when I talked to Gio, it was like instantly we clicked and he just got me, and he got the message. And so this is part of why I want to have these conversations, because Gio is not a mom that is in control. He's not a parent. Gio is a gay man who has a passion for helping other people, and through completely different lifestyles, completely different walks of life, here we are, human to human, being able to connect on this core message, this core advocacy of wanting to help people take a stand for how they want to feel in their lives. And so when I put out the post for diversity that I was just wanting to have genuine conversations with people, Gio spoke up and I was like, yes, let's talk. So during this podcast, we talk about, what's it like being a gay man? And we talk about, when did you know you were gay? How did your parents react? How did you, navigate those big feelings, those big emotions? And then he's just very open, raw, and real and honest about what it is to be human and to be who you are, and to to navigate your feelings and to figure out who you are and go for what you want and desire in your life. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a human being who wants to feel in control of their lives, then this podcast is for you. And I really invite you to listen to this conversation and just see yourself in his words and know that, there's parts of us in other people's stories. It doesn't matter if you're both male or female, like black, white, what your sexual orientation is. Just realizing that there is connection in all of us and we can connect through our stories. So no further ado, if I'm saying that correctly, because I feel like one of my things is my quirks is that I always screw up phrases. So I'm just going to shut up now. And we are going to listen to Gio, the conversation, and we will continue this journey of being human and navigating all of the awkwardness of what it is to be just that. Okay, Gio, thank you for having this conversation with me.
No worries.
You were the creative brains behind Stronger Than You Think when we did the t-shirt campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew there was something special about you then. When people, it could be the empath, it can be the creative, but when I'm so big into human connection and really just learning about people, their stories, and what makes them who they are. And so I put out a call on Facebook that I wanted to have more diverse conversations. And as you know, because I told you previously, Mom is in Control is about parents, women wanting to feel in control of their lives. And I think we need to have a conversation about raising children today that I cannot answer. So I'm really excited to have you here.
Thanks.
So before we dive in, so you are a gay man. I was like, what do I ask? What do I call you? You're like, I'm gay.
I'm just gay. Yeah, it's real simple.
You're gay. You're gay. So I wanted to talk to you about this growing up gay, kind of like when did you know, things like that, but also growing up, how do you navigate this with your family? And also how do parents start this conversation? So if somebody, it's interesting because nowadays it's almost like, and I'm sure it's way different for you, it is more socially acceptable than 50 years ago.
Totally. For sure.
So raising a child who would come out and say, I'm gay is not, it's like, okay, cool. We see and accept you for who you are. So the conversation might be different than maybe the conversation your parents would have had for you. But can you just pull back the curtains a little bit for what that was like for you growing up?
Like coming out or just kind of like figuring out myself?
I want to start with like figuring out yourself.
Well, the first inkling that I had, I was always like a pretty effeminate kid. Like I had all female friends. I didn't play sports. I hated when in gym class they would split us up, boys and girls. Like it was like, my friends are over there. Like, why am I over here with all these guys? But I think the first time I ever had like an inkling of I am different, just not necessarily knowing what gay was I was in second grade. And we had like pen pals from another French school and we were writing to them or whatever. And so they brought the two classes together. And I remember having a thought in my head about thinking that a boy was cute from the other class. And like that immediately in my mind was like, that's wrong. And I remember feeling shame like immediately, but not understanding why or what, or just knowing that that was not okay. And then, so that I would have been like 7. And then during the next few years, like I was like bullied like every single day, anything you could think of that you could call a little, femme kid, like I got called daily, to the point where when I was 10 and I came home from school one day, like just in tears. And my mom's like, what is up? And she sat me down on my bed and was like, what's going on? And I just said, I'm like, all the kids are calling me gay. They call me gay. And like, I didn't even have the chance to kind of figure myself out before people told me what I was in the very negative way. And so it was that thing from, the beginning where I was just like, I think I'm gay. I don't know. And like, my mom was like, do you do you believe that you are, do you feel that you are, not based on what they're saying? And in that moment, I remember vividly being like, I could tell her, because I knew that I was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said no, because I was 10. I didn't have enough, chutzpah or whatever you want to call it, to like really own it. Because this was also what, 98, and like it's very different from now. And so that's kind of where. And then I didn't actually come out officially for another like 8. I was 18, 19, I think, the first time I told anybody.
Yeah, and I want to get into that too, but I find this really interesting because so much of our identity comes from our childhood and like how we were
100%.
treated and the shame that we feel like this is who I am, and the world is telling me that who I am is wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm raising 3 boys, 3 very different boys. And my oldest will come home and say, everyone says that I'm gay. And I'm like, okay, but that is like a normal thing to do, where boys just call each other gay, as in a negative thing. Why is that?
I think the biggest reason is that femininity in today's culture is just seen as a negative thing. Like that's why women are generally like, it's harder for women to get ahead. And so anything that's female feminine is seen as negative or lower than or lesser than. And so if you see it in another man that he's feminine, that's bad. And because it's so deeply rooted in us as a society.
I've never looked at it that way. Like that is such a huge game. Like that was an eye opener for me. That was an aha moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. You see it in like everywhere. It's terrible. Like as a gay man, like I revere women because you guys are the superior sex, like beyond. You guys are like, we have nothing on you. And so for men to think the other way, I just don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I'm like, you wouldn't be here. Like, just shut up.
I know it definitely comes from a place of scarcity and fear, like lack and fear. And, oh my gosh, if we actually allow them to step up, what is this world going to be?
Yeah, because it could potentially pull the rug out from everyone else who's been so comfortable with what's been going on forever, right?
Mm-hmm. So let's continue the conversation. So you're 10 years old. You have an idea. You're like, okay, I think I'm gay, but I can't tell my mom or my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you just wanted to say no? You were like, no, I can't admit that to myself yet?
Well, it was the fear of rejection. And also I grew up with like hardcore Italian family, you know what I mean? So if certain things are like said in like a conversation just here and there, like, which it could have been like, not important to the person. But then for me hearing that, I'm like, oh shit, like I tucked that away in the back of my head as like something to keep and to remember, because you never know, like if that's actually something that is just, they're just saying it in conversation, or if it's something that's like the true core belief of that person. And so, you over the years, you kind of bottle up. And then I was afraid that I would be rejected.
Interesting. So then what happens after 10?
Oh, when I was a young kid, like I was like, super, like I had a vibrant energy about me. And I think that completely went away because I was so afraid of, how I would talk, how I would walk, I'm monitoring myself constantly because you don't want to come off as effeminate or gay, or you don't want anyone to know. So because of that, you're like splitting yourself in half, basically your personality. There's like your real you, which you tuck away. And then there's the, everyday you that you are, you're kind of like miming this fake persona to kind of please everybody else, like at the end of the day, like looking back, I'm like, oh my God, what a waste of energy. But it is what it is, right? Like, so I don't know. It's just, you go on autopilot. You don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. I think so many of us can relate to that, right? We're absolutely all putting this, like there's 2 sides of who we really are and then who the world tells us we need to be. And then you end up doing that for decades and decades and going, who the fuck am I? Like, what am I doing? This does not feel good. You're out of alignment.
Absolutely. And even I think today it's more of an issue because people are voluntarily creating these personas online on social media, and they're like feeding into their own bullshit, and they're like creating this illusion of like, this is my lifestyle, whatever. But then because they're the ones that are putting that out there, they have to follow through with that because they're the ones that are I hate this word, but like curating content around their lives and creating this visual of what they are. But then they can't even, they're not even that thing. So it's like, it's a losing battle. And then you see so many unhappy people, and it's the ones that seem like they have the best lives that are the ones that are hurting the most.
Interesting.
In my opinion.
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, the more perfect your Instagram feed, the less credible you are for me. Like I truly, when I'm like, you and your children are wearing matching clothes in almost every single photo, I can't take you serious.
No, that's like, even with me, like if I, like, I don't know, like if I come across someone new and that's what I see, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to be friends. I just don't think we'll be friends.
Yeah. Or it's nice to have professional photography.
Yeah, of course.
It's another thing to say, I woke up like this.
Yeah. Like and we're talking about the extremes. Like everybody has listen, you do, I do, we all have things on our social media that is like, like that.
Yes. So let's talk about that. We all have a mask that we need to wear, right? Mm-hmm. Are you a Brene Brown fan?
I don't know.
OMG. You will be after this conversation. I will invite you into all things Brene Brown. So she talks about the power of vulnerability.
Okay.
And imperfection and shame and guilt and all of this. And the armor that we wear, right? Mm-hmm. The armor that we have to go wear out into the world to protect ourselves. Okay. We're going to.
Oh, wait, no, actually, like, I don't know. I could not name anything, but my therapist has brought up that name before. So yes, I have heard that name.
Okay. So you're hearing it again. The power of vulnerability. It's vulnerable to be ourselves, pretty much is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Oh, that's like how I do. That's how I live my life now. I'm not about, I can't fake the funk.
So how did you get to that point? So let's go back. Okay. So you had your spark, you dimmed your light. And then what happened?
A lot of drugs and partying to kind of like numb the pain in my 20s, where I just was very much running away from myself. I lived in Toronto for almost a decade, and that was wonderful. It's like made me who I am today, but it was also a huge part of why I kind of like emotionally crashed and burned. And it all happened around like when I was 28. So like, the whole Saturn returns, like, it was like perfectly scheduled where I quit my job. I hated what I was doing. I felt so detached from the life I was living. And I moved back to Windsor to kind of like start fresh, because I was like, I am not going to reach the potential that I know that I can if I continue on this road, which was work hard, play harder. And I just couldn't kind of keep it up. And I think it was, you're looking for external validation through drugs and people who can offer that to you, or partying or whatever, like that lifestyle where you feel like you're part of something, but you're actually just you're just there because you are into the same things that these people are. They're not really, they don't love you. They don't care about you. They're just there to party with you. And then when I left, I saw who my real friends were, because like all those people stopped talking to me because I wasn't within a certain proximity to them. And also the interests that I had were different. And so that was when I realized I don't need to do things for other people. Like, fuck that. I'm going to live my life for myself, even if it's not, like, oh, why are you leaving Toronto? It's the center of the universe. Like, not word for word, but that's the attitude there. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cause I don't like it here. And if I don't like it, why am I going to force myself? And so that realization was something that kind of like a ripple effect into other aspects of my life, where it was like, I'm just going to do what I want for myself. And like, it wasn't like an instant, like, oh, I got it and everything's shifted. It was, you're learning that every day and you have to apply it every day. But that was the breaking point, I think. And so now 3 years later, I'm like much more of like, I just feel like a much more grounded human.
And what did that have to do? So how old were you when you came out, when you told your parents?
My parents, I was 20.
Okay. Yeah. And then you were in Toronto at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And so did you know you were using drugs and alcohol and partying to numb? Or were you like, this is just fun, it's a lifestyle?
At the beginning, it was just fun. And then it just was like, it just became like the norm. So I just kept doing it and then that's when it started to really break my spirit a little bit, just because I knew, and I just felt empty. Like, it was like, I don't get the point of this. Like, where it was to the point where it was like detrimental to my mental and physical health.
Mm-hmm. And so when you decided to come back and you were like, okay, you're clean, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You're clean, coming back, being more of yourself. It is an expression of like getting rid of everything, right? Like detoxing your life from what is no longer serving you. What was that process like for you?
Well, your identity shifts because like for me, it was like, that was the life I lived. Like I worked at an agency. It was like that whole design life. And then like on the weekends you're in the city. And so it was that you just like, when I was in school, I graduated from OCAD and I was like, I took design and it was very much that I'm going to work in advertising. I'm going to be that, like that lifestyle. And so I got into that world and was doing it and was like, I am not fulfilled. I can't, like, this is not what I want. And so you get to that point and you're like, okay, then the cracks start to show because the identity that you have built in your mind and that you've actually manifested in life is no longer serving you. So like, that's when okay, I got to switch it up. Because if you're not happy with what's going on and what you wanted to kind of make happen, then that's like, you have to listen to the signs or like see the signs.
And do you see a correlation with how culturally we set people up for disappointment career wise and sexuality, or just like stepping into who you truly are with like all parts of you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like anyone who knows me personally knows that like I'm not a huge fan of media in general. And I just think that no matter what, whether it's certain career paths or certain like lifestyles or certain like ways of living as an LGBT person or otherwise, there are certain like tropes and ideals that people kind of like say, I want to be that, or I want to do that, but not accounting for like who they are as a person in the process of getting to that point. Like, okay, what does that look like for me? Not, I just want to emulate this thing that I see on TV or in a book or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we disregard ourselves altogether when it comes to like the hunt for, success and whatever, money.
So now I want to turn the conversation. I really am interested. What a parent could do. So here's the thing. When you become a parent, a lot of the women that I work with take on like success, right? Like my child's success is attached to my worth as a human being.
Absolutely.
And I get it. We're all connected in some way. So when we're seeing other people struggle or suffer, it really affects us. What conversation, what would you say to a parent who's struggling, who's like, I thought I did everything right to support my child, and yet they still can't embrace who they truly are?
That's one thing. Like, and I've had this conversation with my own parents where you brought us into this world as a parent. You raised us as children. You supported us. You nurtured us. You fed us. You housed us. You did everything that you could to get us to a certain point. But at the end of the day, who we are as individuals is stamped at birth. Like me, my brother, my sister, we're all three. We come from the same place, but we are completely different people. And that is not something that is the parents. It's not your responsibility to, in my opinion, to like make sure that this person, I understand the connection and the wanting to see that they're happy and that they live their best life. Of course, that's like number one, but you can't take on the fact that that person is not necessarily the vision of what you had from day one. You know what I mean? Like that's just, you can't, even in relationships, you start dating somebody and then 6 years down the road, they're a different person. You can't, I know that's not the same thing, but you can't account for that.
Yeah. We can't control others.
No.
We can only control ourselves.
And your reaction to how they are and who they are, and then that's where the power is. It's not about them. It's about your interactions with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
I love that. So what do you think what can parents do?
I think a big part of it comes down to just loving them and supporting them for who they are. Like, obviously, if they're like, doing nefarious things, like that's a completely different conversation. But I think that the if they are living their life for themselves and they're not hurting anybody and they're just trying to figure out who they are, allow them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Allow them to do it and just be there for them. Like I've gotten to a point with my parents where, especially my mother, where the roles have shifted. Like it's no longer where she's my mother, but we become more like equals in the sense that we're like friends. We can have conversations about adult things. I'm 31, so it's not like, mom, like it's very much like, hey, like I'm going through this emotional crisis. Like, can we talk it out? And she's just there for me in that way. She knows that like at this point, she's no longer raising me as the child, but she's nurturing our relationship beyond the roles have dissipated. Like we're not, she's not mother son. It's very much like friends, which to me is like shows the evolution in our relationship, which I appreciate beyond. I don't know. It's good for me.
Well, I always say that parenting is a relationship. Like that's all it is. And for some reason, culturally, we've bought into this, like it's us versus them. And like we know everything and we're right. And, the child knows nothing, but you can't like kind of what I'm just reiterating what you just said, but you have this video or like this freaking made up story in your mind of how perfect life is going to be. And then you're gifted this child, however they come to you.
Yeah.
And you got to go with the flow. And really you have no control over who they become. You just have to show up and be the best role model you can be.
Well, on that note, one of the things that kind of really stuck with me when I had come up to my parents, or to my mother specifically, was she said to me that, she was like, she very much didn't want to show that she was sad by it. And at one point I said to him, like, why? Like, I'm not dying. Like, what's the problem? And she was like, I'm not crying because you're gay. She's like, I am mourning the life that I thought you were going to have. Because, as a parent, you project this path that this kid's going to take, but you really have no idea what the cards are being dealt with that child. And so in like the larger narrative of life is like, don't expect anything. Expectations lead to resentment. And like, it's that thing where it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a partner or a son or a father or whatever, just go, let go and just enjoy, like live every day. As cheesy as that sounds, it is, you have to do it. You have to live every day, just that day, and just not have any expectations.
So if somebody would have told you that when you were in your 20s, what would you have said to them if they're like, live every day with no expectations?
Fuck off. Like, I just would have said, fuck off. Like I couldn't have heard it. I wouldn't have been able to hear it at the time. I was at the time I was just loud and said whatever I thought. And in my mind, I was like, well, I'm real. I'm real. I'm just keeping it real. But really it's like, you're just being a bitch because you've got a lot of pain inside and you're lashing out at everyone around you. So I wouldn't have been able to hear it.
I always say that behavior is a language. So instead of parents asking their children, like, what's wrong? Look at their behavior. Right. Yeah. And ask, just know that, again, we're always putting on these masks. So what do you think you were angry at?
Everything. I think it was years of just telling myself that, like, I was not even just from other people's opinions, but that I was wrong. And then it's funny because you start to, you get upset about things, or like if you repress certain emotions and it comes out as like a negative thing. And then people start saying like, oh, you're such a bitch, or you're so that you're so this, you're so that. And then you start to believe that that's factual. And then you almost like embody that behavior because you're told based on like, a rough patch in your life. And then it kind of just continues on with, if you're not aware of yourself.
So when you openly talked about therapy, you said you're in therapy. Yes. Or I mean, therapy is, I don't know why people don't think of mental health as like physical health or eating your veggies. Like we all need supplements and veggies and all of this stuff. We're whole beings here. Yeah. So what was the biggest game changer going through therapy for you?
Well, I mean, I've been in and out of it for years. I think the reason I kind of like, I jokingly say like I threw my ass into therapy is just, there's like certain things when it comes to my interpersonal relationships in like with romantic partners that I have had to deal with. Like that was like my main reason. It wasn't necessarily like life, you know, like when it comes to like who I am as a person, I'm fairly good. Like it's, you know, it's daily work, but I think currently it's just like certain things where I'm like, I need to nip this in the bud, or at least understand why I have these thought patterns, or why I'm thinking this way, or why I am acting this way, which doesn't kind of like go with the rest of me, so that I can move forward like effectively.
And there was something you mentioned earlier, which I always say is, I forget what you were talking about, but you said something about it's a symptom, right? Like you're picking it up. You're like, ooh, this is out of alignment. Like, let's look at it now, rather than, you know, what you resist will persist. And then it's just going to load
like
in your face.
I just can't like, cause that's the thing, like for that entire decade of my 20s, it was very much like not dealing with shit. And I saw what the outcome was, and like how much of the cleanup that I had to do, that I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore, because I can't allow myself to get to that point. I couldn't anyway at this, like with what I know, like I couldn't get to that point. I wouldn't allow myself.
So where are you now in like your spiritual evolution?
I think I'm probably the best that I've ever been in my life. I mean, no one is perfect. Like we all got shit that we got to deal with every day. And like, there are always, you know, cyclical behaviors that kind of creep in if you kind of allow them, and, you know, you have like a weak moment, but generally I'd say I feel like I'm on the right path, and I can genuinely say that and be honest, whether it's like my business or myself as a person, or I feel grounded, generally grounded, like from day to day. So I
And
am
how
happy.
do you ground yourself day to day? Or rituals?
Yeah, I meditate a couple times a week. Like I'm not like a daily, like I just that's just not where I'm at. But but mostly I'm very lucky right now. My sister and my mother we are all cut from the same cloth. We have a little support system where I don't have to explain myself when I talk about certain things with those two ladies. They've got my back, and it's like, and if I don't have access to that, I talk to myself. Like I literally will sit in my car if I'm driving and be like, "Okay, you know, like I'm so cerebral in the way that I analyze myself. I'm so psychoanalytical of myself and others, which almost to a fault, where I'm like constantly like, I'm my own therapist, like in my car, where I'm like, you're doing this because this is this and this." And just having that conversation out loud with myself allows me to be like, oh, right. Like you're just getting out of my own head. Because otherwise, like I always say this, if you're in your head, it's almost like a pinball machine where it's like ding, 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 and it just goes around and around and around and it gets worse. Whereas if you just like stop, and then, you know, I just talk to myself like
Self-coaching, they call it.
Absolutely. All the time.
And also, you know, getting support outside of yourself, which you do, which is amazing. Because I always say, like, yes, we need to rely and depend on ourselves, but it's always great to have an outsider opinion as well.
Absolutely. I need it.
To call us on our shit.
Yeah.
So so knowing now you're 31, you said when you were 10 years old, you started noticing, what do you think has evolved in 20 years? Culturally.
It's crazy. I didn't even have it that bad. Like I wasn't growing up in the 60s or even before that. Like I'm fully aware of the fact that like I grew up fairly unscathed, other than like, you know, what I was talking about earlier. But I'm super happy about it. I think it's the fact that like, it's not even a conversation. Like generally it still is, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, there are pockets of people that it just doesn't resonate. But the fact that like when I was younger, like my aunt's kids they're young. Like now they're like 12 and 8. But when I was younger, like bringing a boyfriend around was not even a conversation. It was like, oh, Gio's bringing his friend. They're like dating, whatever. And it was like, okay, Gio doesn't have a girlfriend. No. Okay. And like, it just wasn't, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so I think it's happened very quickly. Like even in 20 years, that's very fast.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think we're headed?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Cultural trends.
Cultural trends. Well, I don't even.
You're like, well, are we focused on the positive or the negative?
I know, because like people who know me, I could go in a whole tailwind of like the opposite side of things when it comes to social trends. But I think that the inclusion of all types of people and the fact that people are feeling more comfortable talking about things that were not even a point of conversation 15 years ago is very powerful. And the more people that tell their stories and the more people that are open and, you know, are being vulnerable and are sharing, like, it just connects us all, because at the end of the day, no matter where you come from, what your background is, like what you identify as, like religion, anything that could be a differentiator from someone else, I believe we all come from the same place. We are the same thing. And so if we are able to connect on some level, whether it's, you know, over a silly little thing that we like, you know, you and me, we both have, I don't know, like a propensity for like pasta, I don't know, whatever, like these little things that like connect us, and it shows us like we are all the same. Like that, I think, is where we're headed, I hope, where we can all realize that we are all one organism. We are all one thing. I don't know. But I think that the divisiveness of things in general is a detriment to our personal development and our development as a collective.
We're all one.
Mm-hmm.
And really, how you live your life is none of my business.
No.
So why do we make it our business?
Because we don't want to have to focus on our own business. That's what people do. I will look externally for myself and point. It's like when people are making fun of other people or judge other people, it's because they're like
judgment on themselves.
Yeah. And it's like, it's exactly that. We're like, I try the best, like, listen, we're all human. We all do this, but I try not to like get involved in that kind of thinking where I'm judging other people and I'm like shit talking, because it's like, what is the point? Like someone could shit talk what I've done in my past, but it doesn't define who I am today. And that person could be going through something, or it's for now, nothing is permanent. So they could be going through something that you don't even know. So to project your shit onto them is pointless. It's just, I don't know.
Have you gotten to a point where people can call you out on your shit? Like, I know my husband he'll just be like, oh, what's going on within you? Like if I say something, he turns it right back on me, and I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. Like, I love it now. I love the feedback.
Oh yeah, fully. Like even, yes, like yes, 100%. Cause I can't lie to myself. Like I'd be lying to myself if I was like, no, like that has nothing to do with this or whatever. You know, it's like, no, like, yes, I'm not in the best place today, and this is why. And I'll explain it, because I'd rather just be honest and upfront than I was never a good liar as a kid. so now I'm like, I don't even go down that road. I'm not even going to pretend. I'm just like, yeah, I'm having a shit day, and this is why. It has nothing to do with you. And I apologize if you're taking it personally, the way that I'm talking to you, but it's not about you. I'm just unable to like calm my jets right now.
So to wrap up this conversation, I feel like I could ask you a lot more questions, but really it's the same shit, just a different language, different lifestyle. Like you're male, I'm female, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all about finding who we are at our core and jumping into that and being, I don't know, brave enough, courageous enough to just be ourselves in this lifetime, the life that we were gifted, the people that we want to be, and stepping into that. So what do you say to that person who is terrified to step into who they are?
Well, I speak from experience when I say this, but I look back at all of the things that I didn't do, or that I was too afraid to do growing up, because I didn't want to be judged or openly, you know, own who I am as a person and what I'm about. And so to anybody who is feeling like fear if you allow it, is a chokehold. It can hold you in place, and from developing personally, professionally, whatever. But the fact that I look back at my own life, and now that I'm at a point where I'm just living authentically who I am to the best of my ability, I'm noticing that more opportunities are doors that are opening for me that I never thought possible. Like even the fact, like we were talking earlier about, you know, the CGLCC, like as an LGBTQ plus entrepreneur, like if I had never kind of come out and like owned who I am as a gay man and own the fact that like I'm, you know, running a business and like I'm trying to like, you know, do my own thing, I would never have gotten in touch with the Canadian Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, who now I'm a mentee in their program. And they help LGBT youth entrepreneurs grow their businesses because they want diversity in the market, whether it comes to any like whatever business you're trying to run, because that's what they're trying to do. And so the fact that if I never owned my shit as a gay man, I would never be connected to these people who are opening even more doors for me. So the fact that I was able to just like, okay, I don't care what other people think. I don't care about, you know, whatever would stop you from doing the things that you feel most connected to. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so one thing I could say is just it's a journey, one day at a time, but trust yourself and go. If there's a feeling that you have, just go after that, whatever that looks like. And you don't need to know the answers right away because it's not going to be clear.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at history, like look back at history, it's people having the courage to come out, to be themselves. And when I say come out, I literally mean every human to just come out and be themselves.
Yes.
To have conversations over and over and over and over again and just elevate the conversation. It's like we're all just passing batons to one another. Like, okay, I did the best that I could. Now you take it and run. And we have to get outside of our comfort zones and the courage to just take a stand.
Absolutely.
So do you have any practical resources for someone who's like, I have no fucking idea on where to start or clue where I can get some resources or I don't want to say safe place online, but there's just a whole bunch of bullshit online. So just a good place to look or go.
Like, are you talking like
resources or people to follow?
I don't like. I mean, like locally, or I don't know. Like, for me, like the way I want to answer that is
answer like, it the way you want to.
Number one, look inside yourself and try and clear out the mental muck that is built up from social media, from shit that you see in the news, like all that stuff. Like, really try and clear out the internal noise. That is where I think everyone should start. And I know that it's difficult for a lot of people because it's not necessarily something that comes easily or people even know how to approach. But
how do you do that? Or how did you do that? Do you journal?
Like on occasion.
Or write?
I write here and there, but mostly, honestly, like as anybody who's listening to this knows, I'm a chatty Cathy. For me, it's I talk it out with myself and with people who are closest to me. Like, for me to like get out of my head is like, I just need to hear it from a source that is not going to buy any bullshit. Like, my closest friends, like I'm like, this is what's going on. And it's very like, well, you know, you don't need to be doing this because you know that that's bad for you or whatever. And like having a resource of somebody in your life who is not going to let you buy into your own bullshit, is going to call you out. Like you said with your husband, you know, it's exactly that. So
talking it out.
Yeah. Like
it's connection. Connection is key. You need to have that safe place.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Awesome. Where can people find you? What do you have going on? Professionally.
Professionally, so right now I own and operate my own business, GIOGRAFIK. So I'm a designer, and what I focus primarily on is like branding, marketing, any kind of like illustration. I don't know. It's like I do a lot of different things, but the projects I'm working on mostly is branding. Like right now, it's a lot of kind of the way that my business has evolved. Like originally it was a t-shirt company, and now it's kind of evolving into branding. And I can't talk about some of the projects I'm working on like publicly, but I just keep an eye out in the next 6 months, which more will be coming up publicly. But if you want to check me out on Instagram, I'm on @GIOGRAFIK, GIOGRAFIK. And I'll just, that's usually where people can find me.
So if there's people, because a lot of people who listen to this podcast are not local, and I know you and I live in the same city,
Yeah.
but they're just really attracted to your message. They followed you online. They're like, I love this guy's vibe and I want to connect to him. How are people, what is the entry point? When you say marketing and branding, where are they at when they come to you? Do they want to rebrand? Where are they?
It doesn't matter. Like I've had clients come to me who want to do like a bit of a zhuzh with their branding. Like I just need like a bit of an upgrade with what I currently have. I'm not happy with it, or I build from the ground up. Like right now I'm working on 4 different brands that are being built from the ground up. One is an espresso, they import espresso machines. Another one is a massage therapist. So it really like, I help facilitate. Honestly, I help people tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
Like I help businesses tell their story through branding.
Awesome. I remember the first time I had a conversation with you, I was like, this is my idea. I'll know it when I see it. Go.
Yeah.
And then you came back and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all like, for me, the biggest entry point into a successful collaboration is knowing the person. Mm-hmm. Getting a sense of who they are, having that initial conversation. Like I find it difficult when it's all online, like email back and forth. Like I'm like, can we at least hop on a phone call? Like I want to hear your voice, get your vibe, and understand like what you're about, and so that I can actually take what you're giving me and make it successful in the sense that it's embodiment of who you are, what you are offering through your services, your products, whatever. And so that it actually sticks and it's not like, I'm just making it look cool. Because a lot of, I don't know, like, so for me, aligning who I am as a person and what I value in real life with my business has been like a game changer, which has been something that I've been able to do actually through the mentorship, because my mentor, he's like, make sure that you're not just looking out for your dollar amounts. You know, it's not just about making money. It's like, you have to make sure that what you're doing aligns with who you are as a person, and just recalibrating my perspective on my business and who I am as a person. Like it was a game changer. And now I've truly been bringing on so many different businesses that are doing that. Like they're doing things beyond just selling shit that people don't need.
Yeah. I feel like there's a huge shift, not so much huge shift in the market recently, because this has been going on for a long time. I just think the internet and entrepreneurship has given people the opportunity to do that, where again, it's all about authenticity. Like what feels good. If it doesn't feel good, then stop doing the shit that doesn't feel good. And I know that message will resonate with the people listening as well, because that's a big one, where we buy into this story that it needs to be hard. We need to struggle. You need to do the 9 to 5, come home, be exhausted. It's like, no, you can be in alignment in every aspect of your life. And what I'm hearing you say, and kind of the message today, is the more you jump into that in one area, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, just live authentically. Like you hear it so much today, like so much to the point where it's almost like people are like, ugh, whatever. But if you do it and you take that for what works for you, you know, like what's authentic for you, then it's kind of foolproof.
Yeah. I'm always curious about this, when people do not do personal development and they're entrepreneurs, I'm like, how the fuck are you still employed and you know nothing about yourself? Like you don't do chronic personal development and you are a business owner.
That honestly, for the longest time, and still to this day a little bit, makes me crazy, because I'm like, I'm trying to like do the damn thing. I'm a one man. I'm running the show by myself. Like I do everything alone. So like, I don't have a team. I'm trying to create authentic, real relationships with my clients while simultaneously providing a service that is actually getting the job done. It's a lot. And like, I'm trying to be aware of myself and aware of my interactions and how I speak to people. And like, it's a lot of, once again, like in that cerebral headspace, so when I see these like, these large corporations or just businesses who are people who are just like so in it for the money, and they're just, I'm like, obviously we all work for money. Like that's just the world we live in. We can't get around it. But like when I see that, it drives me crazy. I'm like, how are you like you said, how are you, how, like just how, I don't know. Like, I know.
I'm so big into leadership, but I'm like, guys, if you just focus on your people, that's going to make your corporation better. And like, you don't need to die. Like, you know, and I did my TEDx talk called Dying to Be a Good Mother. Like, we don't need to die inside in order to make a difference or impact. I feel like once we're light and authentic in ourselves, that's where we can make the bigger difference.
Oh yeah, I've had experience in the past working for like it's where you're pushed and you're pushed and you're pushed and you're pushed and you're pushed because you need to make this faceless company happy. And I was like, this is not what I'm about. I don't want to be a cog in the, you know, the wheel of selling shit. Like it was, I don't know, it was like that was like a shifting point for me where I was like, if I ever was running a company or if like GIOGRAFIK got to a point where I had my own staff and I was, you know, I would never go about it that way. Like, of course there are deadlines. Of course there are things but I don't know, like people in any setting, if you're all in it to win it together, and even the person at the top can talk to somebody at the, you know, an intern and be like, hey, I get it. Like, I know exactly what you're going through. I've been there, and not being like, I'm the boss, do this, like deliver, like you erase the facade. It's like the mother-son thing where like,
I was just going to say, it's the old paradigm of parenting that people are still in, like, they need to do this. And it's like, guys, it's not working anymore. Do you not realize that?
Yeah. I don't know. I would just go about it completely differently. And so I try to do that in my day-to-day with, you know, every interaction, and like, whether it's clients or people I meet, you know, I bartend on the weekends, and like, I get people coming in and I just talk to them like a person, and some of them, they open up. It doesn't matter what their walk of life is. If we're different, like, you know, I'm a gay guy, like some of them are not necessarily open to that or whatever. And I don't talk about my personal life, but I'm not going to hide it, you know? And you get people who are warm up and they're like, oh yeah, my daughter's a lesbian, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, and then it opens up a completely different conversation. And then it's, you know, cause you're creating a common ground, and, you know, I'm a person, you're a person, we all struggle, whatever, you know, let's just move on with our life.
I love this. So Gio, what is the legacy that you want to leave?
Honestly, I think it would just be, I want people who, it's not even like, I just want people to like leave an interaction with me, or just like who know me in life, to like see that I'm genuine. Like, I'm a genuine person. Like, I'm not perfect. I've got things, but I think regardless of like, you know, design is great and I love it, and it's like definitely part of my life. But for me, it's the interactions that I have with people, and just authenticity. Like, I'm me to a T. I always deliver that. And, you know, I think that's as a legacy, it would just be, I want people to feel good when they interact with me.
Well, I always do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we could go on and on and on, but you kind of already said where everyone can get a hold of you. So all of those links will be in the show notes. And again, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. This was great. I really had a nice time.